What do you learn when everything you've ever wanted finally belongs to you? Solomon found that even at the peak of success, the soul can feel hollow. Ecclesiastes takes us on that descent from the heights of human achievement to the still place where only God remains. These 36 lessons are not just ancient words, they are lifelines for our restless modern hearts, calling us to slow down, reflect, and remember what truly matters. Lesson 1. Life apart from God feels utterly empty. Vanity of vanities, Solomon declares in Ecclesiastes 1:2, all is vanity. These words echo like a sigh through time. He had tasted knowledge, pleasure, and power, yet each pursuit dissolved like breath on glass. The Hebrew word hebel means vapor, something that looks solid for a moment and then vanishes. Without God, every effort and success becomes a mist. When we chase meaning without the Maker, we find ourselves grasping air. But when God stands at the center, even the smallest act takes on eternal weight, and the vapor becomes worship. Lesson 2. Creation reminds us of our restlessness. In Ecclesiastes 1:4-7, Solomon observes that one generation passes away and another comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and sets, the wind circles endlessly, and the rivers never fill the sea. Nature repeats itself, but man still searches for rest. These endless cycles mirror our own exhaustion, striving, laboring, and finding that tomorrow begins again. Yet there is hope in this pattern. The unchanging rhythms whisper that the Creator who set them in motion still reigns above them. When life feels repetitive, we lift our eyes from the cycle to the one who never changes, and our restlessness finds its home in Him. Lesson 3. The more we know, the more we ache. With much wisdom comes much sorrow, writes Solomon in Ecclesiastes 1:18. Understanding opens the mind, but it also exposes the pain of reality. The wise man sees the world's injustice and mortality where the fool remains blind. Knowledge without God becomes a heavy burden, a heart filled with questions it cannot answer. Yet this sorrow has purpose. It humbles us and draws us closer to divine comfort. True wisdom leads us not to pride, but to dependence, reminding us that the deepest understanding begins in reverence for God. Lesson 4. Earthly pleasures alone never satisfy. I said in my heart, "Come now, I will test you with pleasure," says Solomon in Ecclesiastes 2:1. He filled his life with laughter, music, gardens, and great feasts. For a moment they sparkled and then faded. He concludes in Ecclesiastes 2:11 that all was vanity and a chasing after the wind. Joy without God becomes entertainment without meaning. The lesson is not that pleasure is evil, but that it cannot fill the eternal space within us. When we receive good things as gifts rather than God's, a meal shared, a song sung, and evening's rest, they become doorways to gratitude instead of distractions from the divine. Lesson 5. Wisdom is better than folly, but even it has limits. In Ecclesiastes 2:13-16, Solomon acknowledges that wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. Yet he also sees that the same event happens to them all. The truly wise learn humility, recognizing that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of understanding. We study, plan, and discern, but we hold our insights lightly, trusting that life's mysteries belong to God alone. Lesson 6. Contentment in God's provision. There is nothing better, Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 2:24-25, than for a person to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their labor. This too is from the hand of God. After all his searching, he rediscovers simplicity. Joy is not earned, it is given. Work done honestly, a meal enjoyed gratefully, laughter among friends. These are holy when received with thankfulness. The secret of contentment is not found in abundance, but in awareness, seeing each ordinary blessing as God's gentle provision for today. Lesson 7. Embrace each season of life. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon reminds us that to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to plant and a time to uproot. These words teach acceptance, the wisdom of trusting God's timing rather than fighting it. When we stop resisting change and start resting in His plan, peace enters the heart. In winter, we wait for His spring. In harvest, we give Him thanks. Each season, even the difficult ones, carries meaning in His design. Lesson 8. Heavenly purpose in earthly life. He has made everything beautiful in its time, Solomon reflects in Ecclesiastes 3:11, and He has set eternity in the human heart. Within every soul lies a whisper of forever. We sense it when beauty moves us or injustice angers us, the feeling that this life is not enough. God placed that longing within us to draw us to Himself. Though we cannot see the whole pattern of His work, we can trust His perfect timing. Life becomes beautiful when viewed through eternity's eyes. Lesson 9. Find joy in ordinary work. I know, Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 3:12-13, that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. Joy is not reserved for the great or the wealthy. It is for anyone who receives the day as a divine gift. Every moment of honest labor, every shared meal, every quiet rest can become worship when done with gratitude. In a world that glorifies busyness, Ecclesiastes calls us to slow down, give thanks, and find the sacred in the simple. Lesson 10. Injustice under heaven hurts deeply. Solomon observes in Ecclesiastes 4:1-3 that he saw the tears of the oppressed, and they had no comforter. Power rests in the hands of their oppressors, and no one seems to stand beside the weak. The scene is haunting. So much suffering, and yet silence from those who could help. Solomon even says that the dead are better off than the living, and better still are those who have never seen such cruelty. These are words of lament, not despair. They acknowledge that life under the sun can be brutally unfair, but they also awaken our longing for a righteous judge. When injustice breaks our hearts, we remember that God's justice may be delayed, but it is never denied. He sees every tear, and in His time, He will make all things right. Lesson 11. Companionship multiplies life's blessings. In Ecclesiastes 4:9-12, Solomon writes, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. When one falls, the other can lift them up. When one grows cold, the other provides warmth. Alone, we are vulnerable, but together we are strong." And when God joins that bond, the threefold cord, it becomes unbreakable. Life was never meant to be lived in isolation. Relationships are divine design, not human invention. We are called to support one another, to celebrate together, and to weep together. Every friendship, every marriage, every community becomes a reflection of God's companionship with us. Lesson 12. A little with peace is better than much with toil. Better is a handful with quietness, says Ecclesiastes 4:6, than both hands full with toil and chasing after the wind. It is a picture of two people, one with a single handful of peace and another with both hands grasping but never resting. Solomon reminds us that endless striving for wealth or recognition robs the soul of calm. The quieter life, content, thankful, and balanced, is the richer one. True success is not measured by what fills our hands, but by what fills our hearts. Peace is the great profit that the world cannot purchase. Lesson 13. Guard your steps when you approach God. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God, warns Ecclesiastes 5:1-2. Be not rash with your mouth, and let your words be few, for God is in heaven, and you are on earth. Solomon teaches reverence. Worship is not noise or display, it is attentive listening and humble presence. Too many words before God can become vanity, as if we could impress Him by volume. The wise worshiper enters quietly, speaks sincerely, and leaves changed. In prayer and devotion, awe is better than abundance. God desires our hearts, not our speeches. Lesson 14. Keep your promises before God. In Ecclesiastes 5:4-6, Solomon continues, "When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. It is better not to vow than to make a vow and not fulfill it." Words carry weight in the presence of the Almighty. Empty promises and careless commitments offend the God of truth. If we pledge something, a gift, a prayer, a service, we must do it. Faithfulness in speech reflects faithfulness of heart. Let our yes be yes, our no be no, and our worship marked by integrity. God honors sincerity far more than ceremony. Lesson 15. Wealth without gratitude is misery. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, says Ecclesiastes 5:10-12, and whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. The more we possess, the more we worry, the more we gain, the more restless our sleep. Solomon saw that riches, when divorced from gratitude, become chains instead of blessings. Yet he also observed something beautiful. It is good and proper for one to eat and drink, and to find enjoyment in all his labor. This is the gift of God. Contentment is the cure for greed. To thank God for what we have is richer than to crave what we don't. Lesson 16. Fortune that cannot be enjoyed is futility. There is an evil, Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 6:1-2, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing his heart desires, yet God does not grant him power to enjoy them. Someone else may consume the fruit of his labor. What irony, abundance without enjoyment. It is a vivid reminder that satisfaction is not stored in barns, but bestowed by God. All success, all comfort, all possessions lose their sweetness if gratitude and divine blessing are missing. To receive joy with the gift is a miracle only God can give. Lesson 17. Life without contentment is worse than none. In Ecclesiastes 6:3-6, Solomon paints a somber picture. Even if a man has 100 children and lives many years, but cannot enjoy the good of his life, a stillborn child is better off than he. Harsh words, but deeply honest. A long life without joy is an existence without meaning. The stillborn never knew sorrow, while the joyless man has known only striving. Solomon's point is not despair, but perspective. Joy must accompany years, or years become a burden. Meaning is measured not in length of days, but in the presence of peace. Lesson 18. No amount of work fully fills the soul. All the labor of man is for his mouth, says Ecclesiastes 6:7, and yet the soul is not satisfied. We work, we eat, we rest, and still hunger returns. Human effort sustains the body, but not the spirit. Solomon exposes the futility of endless striving. The wise and the foolish alike hunger again tomorrow. Our souls need a different nourishment, the presence of God Himself. Only in Him can the inner emptiness be filled. Bread satisfies the stomach for a moment, divine fellowship satisfies the soul forever. Lesson 19. Character is more precious than wealth. A good name is better than fine perfume, says Ecclesiastes 7:1. Perfume fades quickly, but a good name, a life of integrity, endures long after we're gone. The fragrance of good character fills every room we enter and lingers even when we leave. Solomon reminds us that inner virtue outlasts outward success. In a world obsessed with image and possessions, it is wisdom to invest in what cannot be bought: honesty, kindness, and faithfulness. A reputation rooted in righteousness is worth more than all the riches under the sun. Lesson 20. Blessings often come disguised as sorrow. It is better, Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 7:2-4, to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. At first it sounds strange. Why choose grief over laughter? Yet sorrow wakes us up to what truly matters. Fun passes quickly. Pain carves wisdom deep into the soul. In moments of loss, our hearts grow tender toward God, and our compassion for others expands. Mourning teaches us that life is fragile and eternity is near. When we embrace sorrow as a teacher rather than an enemy, it refines our spirit like fire purifies gold. Lesson 21. True wisdom avoids extremes. In Ecclesiastes 7:16-18, Solomon advises, "Do not be overly righteous, and do not be overly wise. Why destroy yourself? Do not be overly wicked, and do not be a fool." His words urge balance. Pride hides in both legalism and recklessness. Too much self-righteousness can lead to judgment, too much indulgence leads to ruin. Wisdom walks the narrow road, humble before God, moderate in all things. Whoever fears God will avoid all extremes. To live wisely is not to live perfectly, but to walk humbly, trusting God more than our own measure of goodness. Lesson 22. Respect those in power, but honor God first. I say, declares Solomon in Ecclesiastes 8:25, keep the king's command, because you took an oath before God. Authority, even when flawed, is permitted by God for order's sake. The wise person respects leadership and obeys just laws, yet never forgets that the highest loyalty belongs to heaven. There is a time and procedure for every matter, and discernment teaches us when to act, when to speak, and when to stay silent. The believer lives peaceably under earthly rule, but worships only the King of Kings. Lesson 23. God's timing is beyond human grasp. No one has power over the wind to contain it, Solomon observes in Ecclesiastes 8:8, nor does anyone have power over the day of death. Life's currents are beyond our control. Even the wise cannot trace the full pattern of God's work, as he admits in Ecclesiastes 8:17, no one can comprehend what goes on under the sun. Our understanding stops where God's sovereignty begins. This mystery isn't meant to frustrate us, but to free us, to let go of the illusion of control and trust the one who holds every unseen thread. Lesson 24. Rejoice in the days God gives you. So I commend enjoyment, Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 8:15, because there is nothing better for people under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Life is short and often confusing, yet joy is still commanded. This isn't shallow pleasure, but deep gratitude. The recognition that every meal, every friendship, every sunrise is a divine gift. To eat with thanksgiving and work with joy is an act of worship. When we rejoice in God's daily mercies, we prove that happiness is not found in control, but in contentment. Lesson 25. Death humbles every heart. All share a common destiny, writes Ecclesiastes 9:2-3. The same event happens to the righteous and the wicked. Death comes to all, saint and sinner alike, and it strips away our illusions of superiority. This realization is not meant to breed despair, but urgency. Since life is fragile, every day becomes a gift. We cannot control when the end comes, but we can choose how we live until it does. Wisdom teaches us to love deeply, give freely, and live each moment as if it matters eternally, because it does. Lesson 26. Enjoy today with a grateful heart. Go, eat your bread with joy, Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 9:7-10, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. It is a call to holy celebration. We honor God not only in prayer and sacrifice, but also in delight, when we work diligently, cherish our loved ones, and enjoy life's simple pleasures. Life under the sun is fleeting. Joy under heaven is sacred. Every breath, every meal, every moment of laughter becomes a hymn of gratitude when we recognize it as God's blessing. Lesson 27. Quiet wisdom has greater power than noise. In Ecclesiastes 9:13-18, Solomon tells of a poor man who saved his city by his wisdom, yet no one remembered him. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, he concludes, but one sinner destroys much good. The story reminds us that wisdom's strength is often silent. It doesn't boast or demand attention, yet its influence can be profound. Loud voices may rule for a moment, but gentle truth endures. Never underestimate the quiet word spoken in righteousness. It can save a soul, mend a friendship, or change a generation. Lesson 28. A small mistake can spoil great things. Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench, warns Ecclesiastes 10:1. So, a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. A single foolish act can destroy what years of faithfulness built. Solomon's image is vivid. One small fly ruins an entire jar of perfume. Character works the same way. A careless word, a secret sin, or a hasty decision can stain a good name. Wisdom requires vigilance in small matters, not just great ones. Guard your heart, watch your words, and tend to integrity daily, for purity is fragile and priceless. Lesson 29. Work wisely, not just harder. If the axe is dull and one does not sharpen the edge, says Ecclesiastes 10:10, he must use more strength, but wisdom brings success. Swinging harder won't fell the tree faster if the blade is blunt. Wisdom teaches efficiency, to pause, prepare, and plan before plunging ahead. Spiritually, sharpening the axe means renewing the mind, seeking God's counsel, and resting before rushing. A few moments of preparation often save hours of frustration. Wisdom doesn't tire itself out. It works with purpose and precision under God's guidance. Lesson 30. Speak few wise words. The words from the mouth of the wise are gracious, says Ecclesiastes 10:12, but the lips of a fool consume him. Speech reveals the heart. A wise person builds with words. A fool destroys himself with them. Solomon knew that foolish talk multiplies like fire, spreading harm faster than we can control. Wisdom pauses before speaking, measuring truth and kindness before sound. Fewer words often carry greater weight. The tongue that blesses others is the mark of a heart ruled by God's Spirit. Lesson 31. Sow generously and trust God with the outcome. Cast your bread upon the waters, Solomon advises in Ecclesiastes 11:1, for after many days you will find it again. The image is of someone scattering seed or sharing resources, trusting that the return will come later. Life requires faith to invest in what we cannot yet see, to give, serve, and plant, even when the results are uncertain. Generosity is an act of hope. What we release in kindness often returns multiplied in God's time. Do good boldly, for you never know which seed He will choose to prosper. Lesson 32. Don't wait for perfect conditions. He who observes the wind will not sow, says Ecclesiastes 11:4, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. The cautious farmer who waits for ideal weather never plants at all. Perfectionism and fear can paralyze purpose. Life's winds will always blow, and faith means acting despite them. Whether in work, ministry, or creativity, progress begins when we move forward trusting God for the outcome. The winds are not meant to stop us, but to remind us that success depends on the Lord, not on circumstances. Lesson 33. Rejoice in youth, but remember accountability. Rejoice, young man, in your youth, says Ecclesiastes 11:9, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth, but know that for all these things God will bring you into judgment. Solomon encourages joy, not recklessness. Youth is a gift, full of energy, curiosity, and potential, yet it carries responsibility. God delights in our laughter, but He also calls us to wisdom. Celebrate freely, dream boldly, live fully, but never forget who watches over every step. True joy is found in freedom governed by faithfulness. Lesson 34. Remember your Creator while you are young. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, urges Ecclesiastes 12:1, before the difficult days come. The poetry that follows paints aging with delicate sadness, trembling hands, dim eyes, silent mills. The message is clear: don't wait until strength fades to turn to God. The habits we build in youth shape the hearts we carry into age. When we honor the Creator early, our entire life becomes an offering. Seek Him now while your passion is strong, and He will carry you when your strength is gone. Lesson 35. All is vanity without God. Vanity of vanities, Solomon repeats in Ecclesiastes 12:8. All is vanity. After all the searching, he returns to where he began, but now with deeper understanding. Human achievement, wisdom, and pleasure all fade. The preacher's refrain is not cynicism, but clarity. Life without God is empty, but life with Him is full even in its simplest moments. When we hold earthly things loosely, they can no longer hold us captive. Everything under the sun passes away, but everything done for God endures beyond it. Lesson 36. Fear God and keep His commandments. Now all has been heard, concludes Solomon in Ecclesiastes 12:13-14. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of mankind. After all his exploration, wisdom, pleasure, labor, and philosophy, Solomon finds the answer not in discovery, but in devotion. To fear God is to live in awe, to obey His word, and to trust His justice. This is the compass of every life. The end of the matter is the beginning of wisdom. When God is our center, everything else finds its rightful place. Meaning is not found under the sun, but in the one who made it. The story of Ecclesiastes begins in weariness but ends in wonder. The same man who called life meaningless discovered meaning in the fear of God. So when the world feels empty, remember, the emptiness is an invitation. Look higher, look deeper, look beyond the sun. There, in the quiet light of eternity, you'll find that nothing is truly wasted, and everything in God's hands is made beautiful in its time.